encroachment into sanitary storm sewer easement in French Oaks. We take no action on that agenda item. Okay, now the consent agenda.
I have several things. On the minutes from last month, I wanted to point out item number 2 on page 5, at the very top line. The correct spelling for Schwarzkopf
Not Lincoln.
is not Lincoln.
Yeah.
Should pay attention in school.
No, actually, I sent her a note on that.
Did you?
Yeah, I
Good for
did.
you.
I saw that.
All right.
I thought that was your middle name, but
Well, I got
Anything else? So 6. Anything on 7? You'll pull out 7? Yeah or nay?
no.
Okay, how about 8? I like to,
wait 1 second. It said 8 and 9. Okay. Are we on,
we're just deciding what to pull out from the consent agenda. So we're not going to touch 6. We're not going to touch 7.
I had a question about 7.
thank you.
Does the,
Let's come back to that. How about 8? Anything on 8? I like to pull out 8. I like to pull out 9. I'm okay with 8. So
I
7,
got some observations on that, but
9.
yeah.
Okay, and
No,
then
no, 9. The collector's report on 9. That's fine.
10. You have some observations on 10?
No.
So we okay with 6? We're going to talk about 7.
Talk about 8.
We're going to talk about 8. Talk about 9. Not 10.
Not 11, unless we have a need to.
And not 11. Okay, so I'd like to have a motion to pass 6, 10, and 11.
6, 9, 10, and 11.
Now I want to talk about 9.
Oh, you want to talk about 9?
Yeah, 6, 10, and 11.
Good. Okay.
Motion?
I make a motion that we pass item number 6, 10, and 11 on the
Second.
consent
All in
agenda.
favor? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we're going to go to 12 and swear in our new member. Then we'll come back to those action items.
How do you pronounce your?
Pronounce it, it's a silent U. So Figueroa.
Figueroa. How's that? Is that close enough?
That's close enough, yeah.
Right hand. You, Joseph Figueroa, solemnly swear or affirm that you'll faithfully execute the duties of the office of Director of Montgomery County MUD number 46 of Montgomery County, Texas, and will to the best of your ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state. So help me God.
I do.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
You're prettier than I am.
Yeah.
Sit over there.
you can fly a plane better than I can.
Okay, there's some paperwork in the folder that you need to sign. So before you leave today,
I signed it
you did?
prior. Yeah.
Okay, I got my copies.
Yep.
And then we need to do, we did A, we did B, we did C, we did D.
So we need to take action
No.
on
We did.
12, which is to accept his qualification documents. Item B relates to the appointment of officers. So right now, we have a vacancy for secretary. That's, we've got 2 assistant secretaries, so we need one of our assistant secretaries to be willing to move up to be the secretary. Really, all that means in practice is you sign more documents. You have to attest for more dated signatures.
Yeah,
Volunteer.
it's my pleasure to pass the baton to Susanna and have her act as the official treasurer and secretary. Congratulations.
And Bill, are you willing to accept nomination also as assistant secretary now?
Assistant secretary?
We have.
Are those the options?
Yes.
Yes.
Now we have a vacancy. We'll have a vacancy for assistant
I
secretary.
wasn't planning on signing on for anything in addition, but if needed, I can.
Very good. Do we have a nomination for both Susanna to be the assistant, to be the secretary, and for Joe
I'll have
to
a
be-
nomination for Susanna Cronin to be appointed as secretary and treasurer for Mud 46.
and
And also Joseph Figueroa to take the assistant secretary, treasurer, and second alternative positions.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Right, so did we take a motion on, we can wait and take one motion on all this. All these under 12, if you want me to roll through them, and then we can take one motion.
Yes, go ahead and roll through them.
So we talked about A, B, C is to update your district registration form that has to be filed with the TCEQ. It reflects all the district directors and what the terms of office are and what their office positions are. So we need to add both you, Joseph, and also the new officer positions and what your terms of office are. So we'll add that. So that needs to be approved so we can file it with TCEQ. Item D, the local government officers list, that it includes all of your directors as well as your investment officer. We have to have that on file for vendors to determine whether or not they have any conflicts. So we'll need to approve that. Training requirements. So did you go by Joseph or Joseph? Joseph, okay. So Joseph, we got in your packet of materials a memo that talks about conflicts of interest, as well as, which is under F, and then also a memorandum that goes through training requirements under the Open Meetings Act and also the Public Information Act. There's 2 1-hour videos you have to watch. There's a link to the AG's website where you can watch that remotely. And when you complete that video, there will be a certificate of completion after each video, after each 1-hour video. If you would download that and send it to Shelley, and she'll put it in your file to evidence your completion. You do that within 90 days of being appointed. I normally recommend that directors do it in the first week or so because it's going to get, way down the priority list. So go ahead and knock it out now while it's fresh in your mind, and you'll have that taken care of. The good news is you'll have to do it once. It's not a continuing requirement. We don't have continuing education requirements to be a director. So once you do that, then you will have met your training requirements.
Okay.
And I think that's it. So no action is necessary under E or F. Those are just informational. We do need action. We already took action on B, so we need action on A, C, and D.
Well done. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to,
Yeah, motion on that.
need a motion to,
E, C, and D.
need a motion to for A, C, and D? To accept those?
I'll make a motion that we accept item 12A, item 12C, and item 12E. D.
All in favor, say aye. Okay, now we're gonna go back to is item 8, let's say item 7,
Now you can vote for the rest of the meeting.
All right.
okay?
Is there a copy of what you guys have? I don't have one. Thank you.
Right there.
Thank you.
Okay, Susanna, do you have some questions about the financial reports?
Yes. On page 9 for the repairs, does that include the repairs from Regan Mead? Eric?
For which line item?
4.07, 0.05, just the basic repair and maintenance cover the water pipe breakage for Regan Mead.
That's where it would go. I don't know if it's in there specifically yet. That was a recent break. That's where it would be.
How much of a delay is in there?
I'm sorry?
How much of a delay is in there from the repairs to when it shows
Did
up?
it, or if a subcontractor did it, then we'd have to get the bill from them and then put it in and then pay.
Okay.
So it could be a month or 2 at the latest.
Any more questions on 7?
Yes.
Maureen, I have a question, and this is just a simple accounting. Same page, page 9. Line item number 6 on expenses. Is there a way, what's the reason for not prorating the monthly maintenance and repair costs. In other words, we have an annual budget. And then, like on this report, it shows 0 for year to date. Do we not prorate that?
It depends on the item. The water service maintenance, I think is what you're referring to. That mainly is the water audit. And I think it's in 4 months of the year. I think it's just started, I believe. So we wouldn't have budgeted anything year to date yet.
So it's a quarterly function.
Not everything we divide by 12. Some things we know it happens in.
Yeah, for cash flow basis, I'd prefer we don't, if we know when it's gonna happen. So
You
some
don't know
things-
when it'll happen.
That one,
We do.
yeah, that one's in this, yeah, and it
Okay.
starts in April.
Okay.
So we'll probably get the invoices in May, June, July, August, I believe.
My turn yet?
Yes, your turn.
Same page, 9. This is on the last 2 items, SGRA water capacity loan and the wastewater capacity loans. I was under the impression, in another previous meeting, I had mentioned the notion of changing the payment dates so that we have and invest our money and we pay the SGRA either 5 months for the after the interest is due on a 6-month when they have to pay it, so they can do it, so they'll have the cash flow there, and for 1 year for the principal amount. Has that been done?
Schedule being able to be
I
changed.
think we can change the payment schedule.
Sure we can. It's interest arbitrage. They're making money on our money. It's not good business sense. And I believe you made a comment when we had a private meeting or workshop that it was a valid observation. So when I went back and took a look at trying to understand what the total amount of bonds that we have had over time with the SGRA, the response back from the SGRA was that they sent me a list of 22 bonds to review as opposed to the spreadsheet that I asked, and they are complying with the law. No complaint with that. But in talking to David, he was under the impression that there was some type of a, what did we talk about? It was the,
So,
a spreadsheet.
right, so there exists, because I'll be honest with you, I had a copy and, my filing system isn't perfect that. So one of your accountants gave me a spreadsheet, and what it does, it takes the series of bonds at the top and it basically states, each month what the payment that you have made over that period of time. And I think Fred is looking for that.
Well, at this point, what I have is 22 documents to go through. The smallest of which I think was 514 pages. And frankly, it's not something I care to do. But I think we can prove for a fact that millions of dollars have been paid in advance to the SGRA. And I won't go back to the beginning of the contract back in 81, but let's go back 7 years, which is statute of limitations. And it comes into hundreds of thousands of dollars of money that should have gone to this district. And that is close to the definition of interest arbitrage. Companies collect money that's not due yet, but is based on a schedule that they created, that the service provider created for its client, and we've held to it. It's part of a legacy thought process that I believe is not in the best interest of our constituents or residents.
So just a clarifying point. So there's a lender essentially who's expecting payments on a periodic basis. That period of time is either 6 months or on a monthly basis.
Ed can describe it best because I've seen the documents, and the documents, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, you have to pay your interest every 6 months and principal every 12 months.
Correct.
And we've been paying monthly into that fee.
But there may be a basis for that. And I need to verify this. I know on like, I'll use our GRP bonds as the example. We have to make a monthly deposit into debt service fund, debt service reserve fund to prove that we are solvent with the lending people. This may be the same case. I just need to check.
Okay.
So
To
since
that point, is also, if I'm not mistaken, a revenue bond, correct?
Yes.
And
So
the
it's
revenue
pledged by
bond, you've got liens on the property within MUD 46. No? I thought you have capacity to do that no?
It's just the water and sewer revenue of Mud 46. So I think when we had talked about it offline, yeah, that's a good point. I think we should discuss it with the River Authority. I don't know where it's going since then, certainly not in terms of implementation. So it sounds like Ed needs to do a little bit of digging about if there's a basis in the bond covenants that is requiring them to get the funds sooner as opposed to just.
And if we're required to make a monthly deposit, then we're going to require a monthly payment from you all.
Is this in any of the supplemental agreements? This relationship for these bonds?
It would be in the bond covenants,
It
not,
would be in
not,
the-
not the
That would
supplemental
be in one of
agreements.
the 22 documents
Yeah.
I'm supposed to review. Terrific. Okay. That's what I didn't want to do.
I understand.
However, I would like to see the documentation on that. And I would also respectfully,
Didn't you receive a copy of the bond covenants?
I did,
You got the official statements.
the official statement.
Wouldn't that have the covenants in?
No, I don't know.
I didn't see that
It
in there.
depends. I mean.
Let me check with Pam
Fine. Okay.
and I will message back there.
And I was referring to making sure when I said no, that it follows that. So if it's shown that it can be done, I certainly we'll do whatever we
Yeah,
can.
if it's a
Yeah,
voluntary
I'm-
deal that is just, we would like, your vendor, the River Authority says they would like to have those funds sooner without a basis in a bond covenant. Then yeah, then it makes sense to say, look, we're not a default risk. We should be able to pay it closer to the time that it's due because, we're not a flight risk, we're not a default risk. It's, a typical, vendor.
Not moving the land, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I get your point that if there are bond covenants with the purchasers of those bonds, the River Authority to take action that flows down to this request for the funds sooner, that's about.
Well, then my request would be, why would Mud 46 directors approve something like that would be so against the best interest of the people that live in District 46? And I look at that as a legal issue. We have legal representation. They should have reviewed the documents. They should have brought up the risk and reward and should have brought up, I believe, that this was interest arbitrage, which has cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars as I look back over the amount of millions of dollars that we have borrowed from the SJRA over the 40 plus years that we've had a relationship with them.
Yeah, or that's.
You weren't, this all predates all of you people here, everybody in this room.
I mean, if you were coming with that scenario today, that's the only way you can think about it, because none of us were here way back when. Then you're looking at, okay, well, why would the MUD have the River Authority issue bonds for us, period? And the answer would be there was some additional layer of efficiency, both with being able to package multiple districts and save on issuance costs and being able to save on interest rate by, having that put together that more than offset whatever.
Well, that's a great point. And in fact, Joseph and I have been talking about that, and he is doing some research on it and has issued a preliminary point of view from his research that we've not yet discussed, because I wanted to have this meeting first and have him officially signed in as a board member so we can talk authoritatively and make some decisions. But I don't believe what you just suggested is an accurate assessment of what transpired.
Yeah, and I said, I can only think about it in terms of if you were considering it today. I mean, none of us were here before, but if we were considering it today, and that was going to be the arrangement, it would be, are you gaining more in terms of efficiency than what you're giving up in terms of having to have these bond covenants that require funds to be paid for sooner? That's how you would evaluate it today.
Okay. Another point and question. Going back, how can we, well, let me see, not going back, having a clawback on incorrectly assigned payments, is that something that we can do as a MUD?
Well, I think that's, anytime you're starting to talk about, contractual enforcement, that's none of that's for, open session discussion.
Okay. Then I'd like to cover that in closed session later. How do I make a proposal to bring this up to the next meeting?
So say it again, what you want to cover in the next meeting.
I would like to have research done by the SJRA to determine what their bond covenants are so that we can ascertain if we prepaid incorrectly funds of money to them in repayment of debt, legitimate debt.
May I make a friendly amendment?
Of course.
For consideration that the information include our ability to pay down the principal on a monthly basis, since the flow of money is coming out of here.
Good
on a
thought
monthly
process.
basis.
Since we prepay in advance, it should go down
Exactly.
faster, reduce the interest.
Exactly, because over
Good,
time.
good thought. But
That I can tell you is gonna depend on what the allow
Okay.
for advanced repayment, because
Yes.
kitty bonds, those, how they handle that shouldn't be any different than how we handle it at the mud level. And there's covenants for when when the principal's supposed to be paid, and then you've got optional provisions that will allow you to, what we call cash to fees bonds
Mhm.
early. And so you have to see, okay, what are your cash to feasance options? Now, the little bitty incremental ones, normally you can't do it that way. You have to call a particular maturity. Or if you do a partial maturity, there's notice provisions and what have you to notify the bondholders, hey, you're not getting paid interest anymore. You're calling this maturity of bonds, this, from this series, and we're gonna pay you off. That should be how their documents are structured as well.
It's just that right now, it seems like we don't have an answer on the question whether the funds that come on. a
once we
monthly-
have
Exactly.
Ed do his research, we'll have an answer. Would it be possible for you to send those documents, or at least one of the documents, to all of the board members here, so we can look at it prior to the meeting, next
I
meeting?
need to verify who has custody of those documents right at the moment.
Okay,
You're talking about a bond covenant.
They should be.
I thought you got 22 of them.
Is the bond
Wouldn't they be-
council
I got, yeah,
document?
20, but these are the bond I took a look at trying to get the interest payment, dates, the amounts of money, if it was paid off, how much was paid of interest, how much was paid in principal, to make sure we're confirmed with our books that we keep.
Would that information be in the bond council document?
It should be in the bond order or resolution. I don't know how they, characterize it. But the
Okay.
bond order or the bond resolution, that's
Okay.
for any public, district bond will set forth when payments are supposed to be made.
Okay.
If there's additional covenants related to a revenue bond that require for additional security, that you have to pay things in, more, accelerated intervals, that should be addressed.
Okay, thanks.
So Ed, about 2.5 years ago, I was at one of the SRI board meetings. One of your-
Last week.
What's that?
I can't remember last.
I
week.
know that, yeah. I'm just saying, I got a spreadsheet. And in it laid out almost all that data by yearly basis. Actually, every 6-month basis, the bond level,
Amortization schedule.
amortization table, and she, I'll be honest, I looked for it, I couldn't find it, but the deficiency in mine was it didn't start at the origination date. It was a cutoff probably from 2022. And it went forward, and it told every mud what they had to pay on these loans. And it was one section for water, one section for sewage. And I think that would probably help Fred understand
The refunding that was done.
refunding. Yeah, we've seen it together.
And that's one of the 22 documents that I received from Jody Cheney from the SJRA. And when we spoke on Saturday, you said you thought you had it.
I looked,
I only went through 2 of my file boxes.
I believe I gave a copy to you, but I couldn't find my original.
I'm only halfway through it. I haven't
Yeah.
found it yet. either.
It's a legal size paper.
Yeah, and I have a couple of legals.
Legal or lemma 17?
What's that?
Legal or lemma 17?
Legal size 17, like
That's
that,
it?
not tabloid. Yeah,
That's not it.
that's
Okay.
not it, yeah.
And you think it started in 2021 and came
Well, I think it
forward?
began 2021, 2022, went forward. What I was missing, it had like issue something, issue. And
They were doing a refund, they may have speculated a bit, but sometimes you have combined multiple old series of bonds into one new refunding, and so they may have been referencing the bonds that were getting.
I believe I got a partial PDF, set limits on an Excel table. And that's what I believe that they gave in.
That probably came from the FA.
I looked last couple of days and I couldn't find it in my files.
Because it seems at a high level, the desire, I don't want to speak for any of the other board members, but my desire would be to explore the ability to pay down debt on a monthly basis, since the funds are apparently coming out from the mud on a monthly basis. So if that's possible, right, it would be advantageous to be able to pay down the principal, because over time that can accumulate to.
Right. And with it being in an interest-bearing account, I think we are using, I know we are in the GRP using that interest advantage, if you want to call it that, to help pay down. But I need to see if we're just making payments or if we're trying to take some of the excess to pay down. I hadn't heard.
That's a good point. I think that would be something that they should look into as well, because it's not, it shouldn't be like general funds that we pay for our wholesale, us, the districts pay to the River Authority for wholesale rates that go into their general account. It should go into a separate account that if it's a one River Authority bond issue issued for multiple districts of which we have a pro rata share of whatever that bond issue was, then all those funds should be going into that account. And to your point, if it's interest bearing, then it would just, whatever interest the district would have earned, the River Authority should be somewhat close on, and that should be going toward paying down the principal and interest and
There are a lot of
segregating.
ways to handle it, to Joseph's point and to your point.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter, James, it was obviously a incorrect decision that was made, and we just need to research it and confirm what is correct and take action on that. But wait until next month's meeting, because Tom wrote down notes here, and I hope you'll make the proposal better than I just talked about it.
My notes simply say, homework, Ed Shackelford obtained copies of bond covenant from MUD 46, sent to all directors and to Brian for legal review and discuss at the May meeting.
Yeah, I think what we really need is for them to, for y'all to explain, okay, what are you doing and why? And then with the funds that you receive, what is the flow of funds? Do they get interest? How do those interest proceeds get utilized? Are they segregated and not, used for some other purpose? I think that's, it sounds like what.
Well, I know Pam has mentioned, at least to me, I know to Chris on a number of occasions where we've got like 75, 80 different checking/savings accounts, one for every bond issue with, depending on which division.
Segregation is a normal accounting process, right? I got it.
You've seen the slide, Joseph, you haven't, and Tom, Dave, I think you have. It shows how we separate our divisions.
Yes, sir.
And their independent enterprise funds, which means they're independent banks, bank accounts and
Yeah.
ledgers.
Which is properly done. That's not my issue. And I think that I'll second Tom's motion. Or proposed, rather.
All in favor of Tom's motion,
I
say aye. Aye. So we'll add that to the agenda next month, assuming that Ed can get the data.
Financial reports.
Okay, moving along to page 10. I would just like to understand under liability, what's in the accrual accounts? Is a general statement. I don't need detail.
Mhm.
The accrual is the ops building from it, so it's always rolling forward.
So really, it's just a carry forward of, okay, fine. Forget that. You've answered the question. Great. Next line under equity, does the $3.4 million on the top line, does that include the 1.083 million of surplus that you have to date? In your operating statement, we have a surplus of almost $1.1 million.
No, that's
Yeah.
operating reserves.
Okay, so that's great. Operating reserves. Just want to write that down. Hang on for 1 second.
Which line was that, Fred?
Top line under equity, it's number 3,000, line 3,000.
Okay.
Does not include the operating reserves.
Does not. Okay, so that's additional money there. Okay, hang on. That, yeah. This is now page 11. I've seen this last year and I never asked the question. What are we paying for the appraisal district for?
Their services to give you the certified roll and go out and appraise property.
Okay,
Everybody has to pay.
yes, I got it. You answered my question. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm through with that.
I have one last question if Fred's done.
Okay, go ahead.
You okay? Okay. So Under assets number 1475 with physical facilities, that's the value of our infrastructure. Just a high level question. Do we have insurance on our infrastructure or is that what the reserves are for?
We have insurance.
On our, and is that total replacement value today as it's appraised or?
Believe so.
We're talking what assets?
Our-
Yeah,
If
physical.
we don't have much, it's going to drain, so it's primarily property
Mhm.
insurance. So normally the insurance provider will ask for a value, in a summary from the insured party. So
And we do that.
So it's the lift stations and water treatment plant.
no,
No,
not.
that's us, right?
Not our assets.
So do we have insurance on all that?
We pay a healthy premium.
Sure.
Okay, so
Before we go to number 8, if you turn to page 13, please. I think the good news there that we should recognize, I believe that in fiscal year 24, our covering was 3.1 months. It's now 5.6, 5.1 with the budget. And I think that's a positive step where we're getting to have a big reserve, which was one of the aspects that that Eric was concerned about. And I shared that to some degree. So congratulations.
It'll keep going down. We just got all the money
Okay,
from taxes.
all right.
So it's kind of the high point of the year, and then it goes back down to.
Let's rejoice.
I will, absolutely.
we
Indeed.
haven't got that 1.5 yet from River Authority. Refund?
Not yet.
Not yet.
When do we expect to have that?
From the excess funds.
Excess funds
Um, I'll have to ask, but it should be soon,
soon.
should be, because
Audit was in April, right?
we certified it last month with our board, March.
End of March.
That
fund was approved last board meeting.
So should be soon. Took me a minute.
Okay.
Okay, are we done? 8. Any more questions on 8?
No.
I want a real quick one. So how about 9? I mean, excuse me, we got 8, 9. I have a quick comment on 9. So we had the election. And if you turn to page 22, actually 21, you'll see the results of that election. To be honest with you, we had a hard time understanding how the election was supposed to be run. But after it was over, we kind of figured it out. And so the uniqueness of this election is that the special districts, which includes the MUDs, basically had 1,080 votes. And 485 of those were cast. I mean, out of the 1,000. The catch is that in that first round election, Arthur won those votes. You mean? So in the second round, which in the beginning we thought we didn't vote, but we did, what happens is when they sum all the votes, right, Arthur gets 485 from that section. So if you look at the results, so he came in, Arthur came in 3rd place, and he got a 3-year term, and then the Luis and Charles got place 4 and 5. I mean, the uniqueness of this election is that if the hospital district didn't vote, didn't vote, and the number of votes cast was diminished, then Luis and Charles would have came in 3rd and 4th. So it's a kind of a unique twist where not voting can actually cause you to win better. And so that was a learning lesson. I think a lot of people kind of scratch their heads on about how to run the strategy for running an election. So in this case, if you can't win, the object should be to diminish the potential winner by not voting. So I thought that was an interesting highlight for that election. So that's all I have to say about that. Consider an act on improve attendance and expense. Oh, you did that one already. Page.
think we're 112 now.
we had, oh, here we go. Receive and, oh, we got that. Okay, consider an act on,
Run 13.
13. Do
Take,
we have any more votes to take? No.
7, 8, and 9.
Yeah, okay.
Discussion.
Okay, Ed, you probably feel like you, oh,
Need to approve
No.
7, 8, and 9.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve
Make a motion to approve item 7, 8, and 9 of the
Seven.
consent agenda.
the consent agenda.
second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. So now we're on 13.
I just have two people I want to introduce to y'all. Y'all seen most everybody else here. In the front, I'll let them introduce themselves and explain why they're here.
Good evening, directors. Thanks for having me. I'm Malia Good. I am the new administrative manager for the Utility Enterprise Division at SJRA. Started about 2 months ago, and I look forward to meeting you and working with you.
Your title was administrative,
Administrative manager for the Utilities Enterprise Division.
utilities, okay.
She works for Chris.
For
I'll
Craig.
explain that here. It's a term we don't always use.
Yeah, because I got somebody handed at the last meeting a copy of the picture of that, and I didn't understand it. I asked David Sunday, and
That was something totally different.
that was different. The enterprise,
We'll
different.
explain it here in a moment.
Okay, in that case, move on.
Yeah. just-
Great,
It
thank you.
gets confusing.
Jacob Everett, I'm the utility enterprise maintenance manager. I've been here about 15 and a half years.
I'd be happy.
So the utility enterprise is the common management structure that manages the Woodlands and the GRP divisions. And so there's 4 people that are in the utility enterprise. That's myself, Jason Williams, Jacob Everett, and Malia. So the 4 of us run the Woodlands division and the GRP division combined. And then I'll let you explain the role.
So what David asked me to explain last meeting was the management changes that we made on the raw water enterprise side. We actually created a raw water enterprise. And the gentleman that had been our Lake Conroe division manager was promoted to the raw water enterprise manager. We moved our environmental group up under him. And we also moved one of the senior admins in the Lake Conroe division up under the raw water enterprise. Raw water enterprise encompasses our Lake Conroe division, Bear Branch, and then our Highlands division. Basically, those units those are our water sales and service and operations. And then and that group reports to me. And then I have one other group under that, which is a water resource flood management division. So between
How does that help Mud 46?
it,
Well, I'll give you an example for the utility enterprise. Prior to the utility enterprise being created, you had the 4 of us would have been in the Woodlands and the same 4 would have been at GRP.
just a management efficiency.
So it saves $400,000 at the time of staffing expenses.
And on the raw water enterprise, it saves about $100,000 a year in management personnel.
And that will be transferred to all MUDs
Well,
with a rate.
the only place it applies to the Woodlands is the 5 MUDs on the Bear Branch side.
Okay. And we're one of them.
There'll be some minor savings, but the majority of it is on Lake Conroe and Highlands.
Thank you.
I have nothing else unless you have any questions.
And your plan?
Yes, sir. I put a memo or email in front of you all regarding Bear Branch Dam. Joseph, knowing that you're brand new and I know David has heard a little bit about Bear Branch before. Susanna, I think you may not have heard much about it. So Bear Branch is the dam and the drainage system that serves 5 MUDs, 7, 46, 47, 60, and 67. You all pay a pro rata share based on your SFDUEs that discharge into the Bear Branch, Panther, and Alden Branch drainage system. So it's not 20% by each MUD, and there's a chart that shows you the pro rata share. Bear Branch Dam, and that's specifically what we're going to talk about today, is a intermediate size high hazard dam. Intermediate being the fact that it is 27 and a half, 28 feet tall, and they rate dams based on their height. And then high hazard means that there is certain number of people downstream that are in jeopardy should the dam breach, or there's a certain number of residential structures or commercial enterprise or businesses downstream that might be impacted by a dam breach. So we fall in that category of intermediate size. Lake Conroe would fall in the high standard. There are certain things, and our dams are regulated by the TCQ. We have 3, Lake Conroe, Bear Branch, and Highlands. But they fall under the TCQ requirements, and one of the requirements by the TCQ is to do a thorough dam inspection every 5 years. And we hire a consultant to do that, someone that is very versed in dam safety and dam design. We also have an emergency action plan, and we also have an operation and maintenance manual. All of these things are required by the TCQ. So we've been having inspections done as long as we've had responsibility for Bear Branch Dam. And so every 5 years, we get those inspection reports. So the last couple of inspection reports, we've been told by our dam consultant that there are some things that needing fix. And so 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we did an interim repair project, interim because there are other things that needed to be done, and this was buying us time till we could get to that point. The interim things were to make some repairs to construction joints, to fill voids that were under the emergency spillway slab, and also repair some concrete and remove some steel or fix some steel that was exposed. We had cracks and holes spalling in the concrete. So we spent that $160,000, all 5 MUDs put in a pro rata share, and that bought us some time until we could get a dam consultant on board to start working on the big project, which is replacing the first 1 foot of soil cement that's on the upstream side, and then also replacing the V-notch shaped service outlet on the dam. And as you drive down Kirkendall and look upstream, you can see that it's kind of V-shaped. It's about 6 foot at the bottom and 24 feet wide at the top, and it's about 14 feet in total height. So those were projects that were identified through the inspections that we had received over the time. So I'm at the bottom of the first page. So the consultant we hired is Schnabel Engineering. They are a national firm that does dams. The firm, their office that we're working with is in Austin, and they have prepared a preliminary engineering report that addresses the original project, which is soil cement rehabilitation and the service spillway replacement. They also did a very quick analysis on the emergency spillway. And they came back and said the emergency spillway is deficient on the concrete thickness that was built back 40 years ago. The current thickness is 8 inches thick, and they're saying it should be 13 to 14 inches thick. This is necessary to prevent hydraulic uplift of the structure in an extreme discharge of the dam. So as part of these recommendations, we got cost estimates for the original project, which is the soil cement replacement and the service outlet replacement. And that's there about middle of the top half of the second page. That's the $5.7 million. And that's a conservative number. They gave us 3 alternates, and for planning purposes, I chose the more expensive option. They did not give us a cost estimate for the emergency spillway replacement and stilling basin. So we asked them to come back with an estimate for that. And they came back with $5.5 million. These are construction costs. We said, okay, so we're sitting at $11.2 million for construction. We still got to get this designed. There's another 20% on top of that. So that's where the $2.2 million come from. for a total cost at $13.44 million. Now, the reason I'm bringing this to you is not to say we need money today, but our first set of funding to initiate the original project, we got $3.6 million from Congressman Crenshaw's office shortly after Woodlands became part of his congressional district. He did a federal appropriation. We asked for a federal appropriation and he was successful in getting that. The money has been appropriated and that's what's helping pay for the preliminary engineering report. That required a local match of 25% roughly. So we have, from the last 2 budget years, we have roughly $1.7 million set aside for the local match to go with that 3.6 million. So we're still short roughly $8 million, $8.5 million. Congressman Crenshaw's office does an annual request for projects. And so they have asked us again for projects that we would like to be considered for appropriation. We've recommended $5 million because that's the maximum that we can apply for annually with his office. But we need some letters of support to show that the community is backing this project. And we did the same thing several years ago when we did the first Bear Branch Dam funding request. So I also went through and spent a little time saying, okay, it's a lot of money. We still have to make up about $3.2 million for the rest of the local match. That's assuming we get all 5 million. That comes to 8.6, and 8.6 from 13.44 million, it's just short of $5 million. So we've got 1.7 in local funds that have been contributed by the 5 MUDs. It can stay committed to this. And if you look at the 4 columns at the very bottom of page 2, you can see where the pro rata shares are based on the MUDs. If you look at the $3.2 million column and under MUD 46, your pro rata share at 16.18% is roughly $517,760. That would be a cash call. Another option, and I'm just giving it to you as an option, is keep your pro rata share of the 1.7 for other projects and let SGRA bond fund the improvements, and you pay a smaller amount on an annual basis. So $4.9 million at 15 years, your annual contribution will be $76,349 while we make principal and interest payments. If you stretch it out for a 20-year term, your number would be $63,358. And these are round numbers. I didn't have the financial advisor do this. This is just quick engineering. But this would give you order of magnitude of your all's contribution towards the rest of the improvements to Bear Branch Dam. Again, the reason we're bringing this up is we need a support letter to go in the package. The package was due last Friday in the congressman's office. We told him that we were meeting with the MUDs this week and that we hope to have a letter of support to him as soon as possible thereafter. Eric has dug through his files and found the letter that we did several years ago. And it's a single letter with the 5 MUDs presidents signing the letter to make it efficient. We've also asked the township for a letter of support, which they've provided. One of the questions the other MUDs have asked is who all have said yes. Everybody has said yes so far to the letter of support, because it does not require a financial commitment today. To give you a perspective on timing, we submit the project for consideration now. If it meets the congressman's criteria to be included in his request for community project funding, then it would go into an appropriations bill. Typically, the appropriations bill are considered towards the end of the calendar year, late November, December. So funds would be available approximately a year from now. We have money to continue the engineering and going forward. So it's not something we need right away, but funding overall, we would need in about 18 to 21 months to go to construction.
For us, is that 517
Yes, sir.
total,
If cash price.
cash price total?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I know Eric has mentioned, and I'm not trying to get into your all's business, how you manage your money, but Eric's mentioned there's been a lot of drainage needs throughout the Woodlands. Probably some is in your all's court. That would be one option to use your current cash for. And several of the MUDs have asked, well, who would sell the bonds? SJRA would sell the bonds. And then we would submit payment requests to the Woodlands Water, and then they would prorate by the MUDs. Questions?
Oh, the amount, our portion is how much to contribute to this project total?
On this additional request, your cash contribution would be 517, call it $517,800. And if you did if we did a bond and you were paying an annual principal and interest, 15 years would be 76,400, or 20 years would be 63,600.
I apologize that this sounds irreverent, but doesn't SJRA owe us 1.5 million? And so why would we issue a bond if you all owe us more than what our contribution to this project would be?
I don't know what you're going to use your excess funds for. All I'm doing is giving you options on how you could come up with the.
It's something that you might decide to do, but.
And I apologize if that was irreverent.
Yeah, it wouldn't be funded because you're not going to get the approval, if there is approval from Congress, till what, late this year?
Or January of 26.
Yeah, so this wouldn't be money coming out from our MUDs.
When do you need the 5K? 500K, what month, year?
18 months, maybe 21 months from now.
2027, probably.
18 months would be late 2026, early.
I have a question for you. This 518.
Yes.
That is the engineering estimate at this point in time?
No, that is it has total, it's your pro rata share of the total cost associated with this additional $5 million.
And the $5 million is what you're going, in aggregate, is what you're going to issue bonds for, correct? For these MUDs, 5 MUDs,
Potentially,
okay?
if that's the choice.
They could all put it out of cash if they wanted.
Yeah.
But that includes the 20% for legal and for
Yeah.
bond issue, okay?
On these, not on that.
Now, on the 4.9, that doesn't cover the soft costs, because everybody has,
That's where I was going.
everybody has a different number for what
Yeah.
soft cost is.
Right,
Some say 12%, some say 15%. So,
say 20.
right.
Right.
And so I'm sticking to just what is necessary to cover the actual costs, and then we would have to up the number to cover soft
Number
costs.
to the soft costs involved in the issuance of the bond. Okay.
I should have put that disclaimer in there, but
And this is all based on SFDUEs, correct?
that contribute to the Bear Branch drainage
Yes,
system.
okay.
Same numbers that we did to Panther Branch contributions.
No.
No?
This goes back to the same pro rata shares that your operation and maintenance monies come to FJRA for operating the system. It's that same pro rata.
Legal question. If we, by the way, I support what you're doing and I like how you've done it. But I have questions as it relates to the contractual commitments. As you've heard from me before, I've got a lot of issues with the legality of contracts written before. Not to beat that dead horse, but will we be able to write a letter of support that would be appropriate and pass through Crenshaw's office if we put subject to review by MUD 46 of the legal documents and approval of the budget, or that doesn't work?
My gut feeling, and I'll let Brian answer, but mine is that's not relevant to the letter of support.
So basically, it's just It's a community letter saying that, yes, we support to dedicate funding to contribute 25% of the cost to go towards this project for appropriations. It's a letter that a lobbyist is going to hand over, right?
Right.
Okay.
Joseph, you have a point.
The question about the hydraulic uplift
Yeah.
recommendation, there was 8 inches currently, and there was a recommendation to go to 13, 14 inches.
Correct.
Did the engineers provide a quantifiable risk of it remaining?
No, and the reason I say that is that wasn't part of their original scope. They put I call it a disclaimer in their report saying, this is something that needs to be looked at in the next phase of engineering. And so all I'm trying to do is make certain that in the next phase, that we have, if it truly does come forward as needing to be replaced, there are funds available to cover it. Yeah, we can do it all as one project, the original project plus this emergency spillway, or we can do it in phases. Doing it in phases, separating it by a couple of years may cause it to be a little more expensive. And then the other part of it is, because others have asked, if Congressman Crenshaw does not get funding or it doesn't get approved to get on his appropriations list, and we do the whole project, including the emergency spillway, then the balance comes from local funds.
Understood.
And then just going back to your question, we would ask the consultant to give us a risk assessment.
Okay. David, you have a proposal on this?
Yes, how about, we, pass a motion asking Eric to draw up the letter and giving me the authority to sign it.
There's
And
not an
because it-
action on this, it's just received, so as long as there's no objection, I think we just concur with David signing on behalf of the district to support the application.
We need a proposal for that? No? Let's go for it.
Let me know when I need to come by and sign. Will do.
Thank you all very much.
You want to call y'all's attention to the clock, unfortunately. we're
Yep,
about
that's right.
51, So if there's action items on some of these others, we may have to cut discussion short, but to be able to take action.
Ed,
Yes, sir.
are you going to be available after the meeting?
After the next meeting? Yes, sir.
All right. I have questions too, but I got passed over.
Sorry.
No questions for Ed. Okay. So, if you're satisfied with that,
Yeah.
the next item was item 15. So we're going to have a second trustee meeting this month. Is that on Monday or Tuesday? Tuesday. So I would like to table 15 to next month, and we can know the results of the second trustee meeting.
That's good, and I'll remind the board members to go ahead and send me any comments that you have that I can get over to the consultant in the
Okay.
meantime. So send me any comments that you have on on what you received in the first meeting.
Okay. Next one is receive an update, Bear Branch. We kind of did that.
Yeah, we did.
Well.
No, we didn't. That's another
different,
topic.
but there is no action. I'll be setting up a stakeholder meeting hopefully in the next month.
Okay. Attorney's report?
I'll keep it brief. We're referring to the trustee video for an update on the various legislation that we're tracking. Actually, we're tracking a lot more than that, but I touched on a number of bills, so we encourage you to watch that if you're interested in some of the bills that we're tracking.
Thank you. Okay.
And then we need to cover item 18. I know that's something we've
Yeah.
had on here for a while. Y'all should have copies of that reservation policy. Happy to answer questions if you have them. I think the policy incorporates all the items that we've discussed. And we will do the motion to adopt that after any discussion.
Fred?
First and foremost, great fulfillment of David's report. I've got a number of questions and I have some inclusions to it. I didn't have time with everything I committed to this week to get it to you, but I will do that. And I think it's a good start, but my overall observation is that I like to readdress the amount that we will charge, which is page 2, section 3, reservation available capacity and what the cost would be. How it's how the reservation fee can be adjusted from time to time is not addressed in this. So I will send you a document. I will rewrite this, not just send you a scrawl on your original document, to show you where all of my questions are. And readdress the issue on the price per SFDUE, if that's okay.
Just for the rest of the board, I know, talked about this quite a bit. So what was prepared was based on what the board had, landed on in terms of an initial cost. If that wants to be, if the board wants to modify that at some point in the future, it would just be a moment of cost.
I think we should go out and our first effort should be a situation where, I believe, should be a situation where we at least, at the very minimum, get back what our out-of-pocket expenses are. And to go with just the raw cost from the SJRA, I don't believe is fulfilling our commitment to our constituents. I think that it has to be a number different, that's how you get to it with where the questions come up. So what I will do is send my notes to you. And if you'd like, if you suggest this, what my logic is to have the different types of cost presentations and send that to the board members. Well, through Eric, obviously. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's not for me to decide in terms of the price. I know we've had a number of discussions, and I don't want to veer off into closed session, but
No.
if we're revisiting that, because I thought that we were
Closed session.
that, but if we're not, then that would need.
We're gonna revisit that, right?
What's
The
that?
pricing.
Yes,
Okay, so we need to have a closed session next month.
next month?
I mean, is that,
That's fine.
is that fine?
That avoids a workshop, and I would like to avoid an extra meeting if humanly possible.
well, so how much time do you need, Fred?
How about if I send the documents to everybody, through you, to everybody in advance, so next month we'll put 10, 15 minutes aside to discuss it,
And then decide on a workshop.
and then decide if we do a workshop or not. We'll come up with a number that we agree with. Does that make sense? I'm trying to streamline the process.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's.
So you'll put a new action item. We would discuss this item again.
We'll just keep it on here.
Just keep it on here and move it to next one.
That's fine.
Okay. That answers it. By the way, good job and great recommendation, suggestion by Dave.
So we did, okay, general manager's report.
We're continuing the ditch evaluations and we're looking to do some work within the budget that we have in 46 and other districts. So I'll come back to you with some points on that going forward. Just a reminder, the next All-Muds meeting is May 8th, same place, same time. There, as David mentioned a minute ago, a special trustee meeting on 4/22. That's next Tuesday. And then wanted to give you an update on the Spring Creek Drainage Project. That's the project that's been under design for the last couple of years, or excuse me, under evaluation for the last couple of years to address drainage on Spring Creek. They are required under their grant and funding to do multiple town hall meetings. The next town hall meeting that they're going to do is in Waller, and that will be on the April 21st. And then a week later, on April 28th, they'll be back at the township. So they'll be presenting at the township. So I think it's the same presentation, so don't necessarily need to go to both.
That basically completes the SRA's obligation for the grant packet.
I believe so.
That's what I've understood.
Just want to let you know, we did go live with our new billing software. And so the bills that you received came from the new billing software. So we're working through bugs and different things, but it's going relatively smoothly. I did want to point out that as I committed a month or two ago, that when I sent the comparison worksheet matrix to Corollo, that y'all would get it. What I did, if you hadn't gotten a copy right here, is consolidate all 10 MUDs onto one sheet so you can see how all the MUDs voted or, selected their criteria. So that's there for you to see. And then next item is really part of the trustees report, which was talked about the GM or the GRP meeting and a summary on that. There's a summary listed in your trustee summary on what I reported to the trustees last month, so you can read that. If you got any questions on that. Big, I guess, highlight was I made sure that as I present my goals and objectives for the Woodlands, that it aligned with the trustees. And I presented that to them and they concurred with my goals and objectives that I'll share with the GRP committee next week. Next meeting is on Monday, the 21st. And with that, that's all the general manager's report
And the trustees report.
and the trustees. Yep.
Hey, no closed session. We've done that already.
I did want on 20, just because it was requested on
Oh,
a
okay.
district or two. I put it on all agendas. And this is just a reminder that our protocol for getting agenda items, of course, we talk about some in this meeting, but during the month, if things come up, to bring them to my attention by the close of business on Wednesday, the week prior to the meeting. On Thursday, the next day prior to the meeting, I finalized that with Brian's office and internally, and then that sets us up nicely to be able to gather all this information that you've got and build these packets so that you'll have them Friday afternoon. So just wanted to go over that.
As understood.
I have a question. I didn't realize what the page numbers involved. I had some questions for Ed and Chris, but they're gone. Takes care of that, right?
Yes. You let them escape.
You can send them to me, I'll get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've completed the number 24, right? Discuss future agenda and announcements. Any more than we discussed today?
The new one would be the bond payment process.
Yeah, bond payment. Yeah.
Ready, and then keep the other two items on there.
See, Santa came early this year.
Make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Have a second?
Before we do that, I have a question for Eric and John. Smart water, maybe this is too wild an idea, but in taking a look, this is on page 55 for those who would look at it. It shows water smart registrations, and I think this is a great summary of where we stand. It's not a very positive statement for the Woodlands as a whole, but have only 70% of our folks that have signed up for it, yet it imposes a potential liability for each of the MUDs if we give credits for people who don't do this, who haven't signed up for Water Smart. So I have a thought process. If we take a look at 46, and we're at 76%, not a bad number, but still not near in the 90s where it should be. I was thinking about having a incentive program. Send out enough notices to comply legally with those people who have not signed up for Water Smart, and effective a certain date, give them a 10% increase until they do sign up, which will be used as a fund to credit those people who have had problems. That makes sense. Where we give them credits for not being part of Water Smart, but we still listen to their concerns and the legitimacy of it. Like that lady who had financial issues and a pool was destroyed and something was broken up. This is a couple of months ago. And we decided to give her money to soften the blow, or give her total, I don't remember exactly what the decision was, to give her a total reimbursement of those charges. You recall that situation? Okay. To me, if that money comes from the residents, I know that Tom had some issues about that, and also about the business, the shopping center, that we should or should not give money to those folks. My point is, if we have a contingency set up where those people who have not complied with Water Smart pay an incremental 10% of their bill, which goes to a fund, an accrual account, that would be used to help offset any more expenses to the individual residents who have done the right thing and signed up for Water Smart. That's my thought.
I'll take that into consideration as we develop the new process.
Good.
The new policy.
New policy, okay.
Any idea when that'll come out?
We're getting there.
Okay, so
New policy is getting there. Got it.
So Tom, you had made a motion to adjourn.
And to adjourn.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.